This is a video about how the House of Representatives seats are assigned, and then we're going to talk a little bit about gerrymandering. Okay? First off, the census. Okay, so Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3 of the United States Constitution tells the government that they have to count the population of the entire country every 10 years. Why do we want to do this? Well, we use the population to decide how many representatives each state gets for the House of Representatives, okay? So depending on how much of the population of the country you have depends on how many how many representatives you get, okay? So here is a chart actually, so you can see the population going up, then briefly down. This would be the Civil War when part of the country left for a little while, okay? Then we can see it going back up and up and up, and then it's pretty much static for a while, okay? That is because we are currently at 435 members of the House of Representatives, and there is actually a law in place that it will stay at 435. Okay, so unless there is a new law passed by Congress increasing the number of House members, it will stay at 435 indefinitely. Okay. Now, the Reapportionment Act of 1929 essentially tells us, it gives us the way that we distribute representatives today. Okay, we're still working off of this law from 1929. Okay, the Census Bureau decides how the numbers get distributed after each census. So they have a plan of how they want to do the census, and then they send it to Congress. I'm sorry, they send it to the president, and then the president will give it to Congress. If Congress doesn't say yay or nay on how it's going to happen, then that's how it goes. And of course, as I said, the total number of representatives has been capped at 435 since 1911. So because of this, the average district has gone from 200,000 people to about 700,000 people. Because think about it, if the population, what the population was in 1911 compared to what the population now in 2018, obviously we have a much bigger country now. We have so many more, we are into the, millions of hundreds of millions, sorry, of population. I believe our population is around 300 million, I believe. I would have to look that up, so don't quote me on that. And so now the average voting district for the House is up to 700,000 per district, okay? And it used to be at 2. So now every representative is representing a lot more people than it used to, okay? But again, Congress wants to keep the number at 435. So you can see here, this is actually how the last census went, okay? So the number on here is how many representatives there are, okay? So you can see Ohio has 16. This -2 means that in this census in 2010, we lost 2 seats, okay? The previous 10 years we had 18, now we have 16. It's very possible that we will actually lose another seat or two possibly in the census of 2020. Okay, now our population is still increasing here in Ohio, but it is not increasing in the same rate as a lot of states in the South and West. Okay, people like to live in the South and West. It's sunny, there's no snow, yada, yada, yada. So they are actually getting all of those states are going up. So you can see the only one that's not in the South is Washington, but still you can see the purple states are the ones who have gained seats. The yellow ones stayed exactly the same, and the green ones lost seats. Okay, so even New York, what has New York City, which is very large, they lost seats as well. Okay, because they're not growing at the same rate as these other states, okay? Now, to talk a little bit about gerrymandering, Okay, now gerrymandering is essentially the idea that you will redraw a voting district to gain a political advantage. Okay, so for instance, if you are a Republican, you want to draw the districts so that more Republicans will get elected. And if you're a Democrat, you want the same thing. Okay. Um, and the reason that political parties can do that is because every year they're going to redraw the lines to make sure that each of the districts are proportional and that they all have around the same number of people in it. Okay. And typically, not every state does this because every state does it differently, but most states, it is the state legislatures that get to draw those districts, okay? And so whoever the political party in power is in that state legislature gets to decide that. Now, Ohio has recently changed this so that there is an independent commission that draws them, but only at the federal level, not for the state districts. So that doesn't help quite as much. And we won't see the changes until after the next census, okay? But there are a lot of states that are changing this. There's actually been a lot of Supreme Court cases that have gone about gerrymandering. Pennsylvania actually just had to, just a few months ago, throw out their entire voting map, redraw the lines right before the election. Okay, so it was a lot of work for them, but the Supreme Court ruled that their map was too partisan and hence not very democratic. Okay. So to demonstrate a little bit about how you just drawing the lines can change the outcome of the election. You can see down here at the bottom. So here is just let's just say this is a state, okay? A state that lives in a perfect rectangle, okay? So there are 60% blue, okay, and 40% red, okay? Now, in this first district, this in theory has perfect representation because we have 3 blue districts, 2 red, so the split in that legislature is still basically 60-40, okay, because we have 3 blue districts and 2 red. Now, this one has a compact, so the districts are a little bit more compact because they're not necessarily in those straight lines, but it's very unfair because now we have 100% blue districts and 0 red when there are actually, 40% of the people living there are red. This one is not compact and not fair because there are now actually red wins even though they have less people because they drew it in such a way that it like spread the blue out so that there are 2 districts where they're almost totally blue, but the other 3 have the majority red. Okay, so you have 40% of the population controlling the other 60%. Okay. So that is essentially how gerrymandering works. Here are some examples of actual voting districts, and you can see how crazy they look. Okay, so you can see up here, this is one in Illinois, this is one from Georgia, this is one from North Carolina, and this is one from Louisiana. A lot of these, like this one in North Carolina, you can see goes from almost the very top of the state to the very bottom, and it's hardly connected by anything. Okay, it's hard to say that possibly the people that live down here outside of Charlotte maybe have that many of the same concerns as the people that live at the very top of the state. I mean, driving from there to there would probably be 4 or 5, 6 hours. And look at Louisiana. This is almost the whole outline shape of the state. And Louisiana is quite large. I imagine to get down here from Lafayette all the way up here to Shreveport would probably be 6 or so hour drive. Okay. So none of these districts, there's no real reason for that other than one political party was trying to, make control the vote essentially. Okay. Here are the actual districts right now in the state of Ohio. Okay, so here is the, I'm going to point out the 4th district. Oops, sorry, because this is the district that I live in. I live in Union County right here. And so it's kind of crazy because I live about an hour an hour away from my parents, right? They live up here in Seneca County, but we have the same representative. I live 15 minutes from my sister who lives in Franklin County, and she has a different representative than me. I feel like that never makes any sense. Now, some of these in Ohio aren't that bad, but some of them are, okay? So for instance, if you look at this yellow one up here, it goes from Cleveland to Toledo. Okay. Or for instance, down here, this one, the 6th district, goes all the way from the little point at the bottom of Ohio, almost up to Ashtabula. I believe this is, no, Youngstown, sorry. So that is a very large district that's in kind of an odd shape. Now, of course, they typically try and keep things completely in one county, but that doesn't always work out. Okay. So now you can see if this were not gerrymandered, if these were specifically just um, just like compact with the right amount of people, okay, with no gerrymandering whatsoever, this is what it could look like. Okay, so now this is where I live here in Union County. I would be part of other central Ohio counties in my voting district, which makes a lot more sense. Okay, now this is Columbus. Okay, so it's not a full county, but that's because Franklin County has more people than we would put in a voting district. Same with Cleveland and Cincinnati. Okay, but you can see all of these districts are much more compact. Okay. All right, so are there reasons to keep gerrymandering? Because I'm sure up to this point you're thinking, well, gerrymandering seems pretty terrible. We shouldn't do it. Okay. Now, sometimes there are reasons to have it. We sometimes want something called, in the Voting Rights Act, used to require that some places have majority minority districts. And that is so that certain minorities, they kept getting their vote essentially diluted and they could never hope to elect a representative. So for instance, there are some districts that are drawn in such a way so that it's trying to capture all of the black vote or all of the Latino vote, so that they can actually have some representatives. Then sometimes too, the tradition or it balances out when other parties take control. I mean, personally, there are some arguments, but generally gerrymandering is usually not great. Okay. If you have any questions about gerrymandering or apportionment, please reach out to your government teacher.